Welcome to this month's Videocast. I'm Jim Brewer, principal of Northland Pines High School. And with me today I have some of the best and brightest that we have here at Northland Pines, some of the greatest educators that I've had the privilege of working with, and I'm so glad that they are working with our students day in and day out. And these folks here today are going to talk a little bit about standards-based grading. And standards-based grading is a form of assessment that we are moving to here at Northland Pines High School that we truly feel is in the best interest of all of our students and the parents and guardians and the community members for feedback that we have. And it is something that is replacing a traditional grading structure that many of us have grown up with, have used in our own classrooms for a long time. And the paradigm shift of moving to standards-based is something that we are very passionate about and are moving towards. So at this point in time, I am going to introduce or have them introduce themselves, and then I'll talk a little bit about the history of our movement towards standards-based, and then I'll turn it over to the practitioners that are using it day in and day out of their classrooms. So we'll start to my left, and Mrs. Stuber.
I'm Kristina Stuber. I teach German at Northland Pines High School, and I find that standards-based grading is beneficial for our students because it provides more reliable grades. We are able to better assess what students know and what they're able to do.
Hi, I'm Joseph Grittner. I'm the high school art teacher. I'm one of the teachers piloting standards-based grading. I've been working with standards-based grading for probably about 8 or 9 years now, not only in this district but in my previous district. And I find that it's a great way to be able to communicate to both the students and the parents what the students are learning and what is expected for them to learn.
And Mr. Grittner comes to us from a school district, and he came to us 5 years ago. In fact, Joe, you're the first hire that I had here at Northland Pines. And one of the reasons why we hired Joe is because of the experience that you had with standards-based grading. I as well came from a different district that implemented standards-based grading at the high school level. And I think together we have been working with the staff for the last 5 years on helping to introduce the concepts, the philosophies, the pitfalls, the benefits of standards-based grading with that here at Northland Pines. And so I really appreciate all your efforts, and Kristina, you as well, for the work that you're doing this year on helping to lead and guide our staff in standards-based grading. And to my right is a gentleman that I took down to my far right is a gentleman I took down to a Robert Marzano video session webinar 5 years ago at Nicolay, and that was kind of the way that I did to help start the conversations of standards-based grading at the high schools. So, Mr. Alavati, tell us a little bit about yourself and standards-based grading and how it's impacting your classrooms.
I'm Josh Alavati. I teach English language arts at the high school. And as Mr. Brewer said, my journey on this started about 5 years ago. And the key selling point for me is the feedback component with standards-based grading, and primarily the depth that we can go to with students, get a better assessment of where their skills are at, and then also the door opens to really work diligently to improve those skills. There's not a hard stop point, and sometimes that used to be there in the old grading system. So I feel that the feedback is the biggest benefit to our students, and the feedback that we can transcend and communicate to parents as well.
One of the forms of feedback that we started this year was separating out the behavior characteristics from the grading element. And so we added 4 extra benchmarks, so to speak, on our progress reports and our grade reports that are going to be coming up, where we're inquiring about homework, we're inquiring about respect, we're inquiring about technology and engagement level in the classrooms, and reporting that out to parents and guardians on a 4-point scale. So parents and guardians can see exactly how their child is performing behaviorally in class, in each class. And that does allow us for greater communication, not only to parents and guardians, but greater communication to us as an educational institution and staff, because we'll take a look at all that data and be able to formulate, is this child having an issue in this class but not having an issue in the rest of the classes? Is it a personality conflict per se that's taking place in class, or is that student academically struggling in that class and therefore behaving up? But it's given us some more information and creates more dialogue with it. So I'm really glad that you pointed out the communication piece, because that is one of the greatest benefits of standards-based, is providing more feedback to parents and guardians. So thank you. And then to my right, Mr. Hayes.
I'm John Hayes. I'm with the math department. In the math department, we're piloting standards-based grading in algebra and geometry this year. And we've been using a rubric for a number of years in our courses. And what we're really focusing on this year is the feedback, like Mr. Olivati said, but maybe in a different direction where we actually are able to get credible feedback back from our students on what they do or do not know. And we're providing them with those standards, with the language for providing us feedback on what they do and do not know. And I think that helps, as instructors, it helps us just identify where problem areas are and what we can do to fix them, or maybe what we can do to enrich in a particular child. So.
Yeah. Do you feel that for your department that standards-based has been a good thing to be doing?
It's I wouldn't say the change has been like a huge change for our department because we have used a rubric for so long, and we were thinking about standards-based grading a few years ago, to be honest with you. So we've been kind of developing that process. I think the biggest change is that our students are more focused on what they are learning, rather than getting an assessment back and saying, "Oh, I got a 90% on it." Or, gee, I got a 60% on it, how can I get a 70%? They're saying words like, gosh, I don't understand what a systems of equations are. Can I come in and talk about that, Mr. Hayes? So they're able to identify exactly what they do and do not know.
And that has been one of the strengths of the system that we're noticing, is that students are taking more of an interest in the areas that they don't understand and really want to work hard to learn that, versus saying, you know what, I've got an 89% and I need a 90 to get an A. Okay, they're focused in on, here's what I need to do to learn. Okay, and that's really what we want this to be, is focusing in on the students' learning and engagement and providing that feedback not only to the parents or guardians, but ultimately to the students, so they can achieve the level of proficiency or advancement that we want them to achieve. Now, as a staff, how do you think the shift towards standards-based has been going?
I think the shift, I think we've started off well. This is a multi-year process that we're in. We've been discussing as a staff for a long time. We've got a ways to go. It's not a short, simple process, and it's something that's going to continue to evolve over time. My English 2 partner, Mrs. Tilley, and I, when we're going through that pilot course and looking at assessments and rubrics and thinking about how many times we're revising them as we go, and we continue to reflect, and based on feedback from students, assessment scores, it's a continuing process. We take that back to our department. We share. We've had some wonderful staff development sessions, and that feedback helps us. We're getting there. We've got a tremendous staff at Northland Pines, but this is a lengthy process, and it takes time.
I agree. I think the process is what's important. The feedback that you get from the students directly impacts how you write your assessments, as Josh said, but it also impacts what you're stressing on in your classroom, what's important for your students to learn. And sometimes that takes a little while to figure out. It seems like a no-brainer that you should be able to follow the state standards and say, hey, this is what my students are learning, but really, what are you stressing in your classroom? What do they already know, and what do you need to stress in the future? And that could be dependent on any individual class or any individual student, what you actually need to be teaching.
Could either one of you maybe explain what pillar standards are and what essential learning targets are?
Well, pillar standards are kind of major concepts within a course, and learning targets are more specific to how you're going to achieve and get to those pillar standards. So the pillar standards are more broad within the concept of the course, and the essential learning targets are more specifically addressing each pillar.
I also think that students, when they walk into a classroom and they see the essential learning targets posted, they know from the very beginning of a unit what they're learning, and there's no question of what's expected of them. They know from the very beginning, and that's, in a sense, comforting for them on that journey of learning. And it also helps to guide the process of learning in the classroom. So the essential learning targets are more specific, but they are also addressed on a regular basis every day in the classroom.
And those essential learning targets are graded on a 4-point scale that we have here. How does a 4-point scale work, and I'll compare it to the traditional 100-point scale?
Well, I think the 4-point scale is a much fairer scale than the 100-point scale because you are able to really show specifically what a student does or does not know based on the details that you put into the rubric. The 100-point scale is flawed in many ways, where it leads very heavily towards failure versus towards success, and it doesn't really show you what they know. It just shows you a number that represents something. But the 4.0 scale, the 4-point scale, definitely gives you more information than the 100-point scale.
Overall, you feel pretty comfortable with the direction that we're going in regards to standards-based grading, and are you glad that we're making this arduous move? So are you happy that we're moving in that direction?
Absolutely. I think what it is forcing us right now as a staff to do and reflecting on, our teaching practices and what material we're actually assessing, giving the kids, a more clear picture of what we expect of them and how to get there. I think it's better to be able to assess what students know and what their skill set shows. That's much more accurate than a lot of the traditional methods. And I think what we're going to see, and we've seen flashes of this in our pilot courses, I believe, the student ownership of their learning. I think that's going to be a big payoff for them.
I feel like it's a relief that we have the mechanics behind the standards-based grading system kind of complete. We have our rubric set up. We know where we're going with our grade book. And with those tools, now we can kind of dig into learning in general. And I think that's where all of our staff wants to be, is we want to just focus on learning. The system kind of gives us the tools to do that. So.
Absolutely. Well, it certainly is a paradigm shift that we're doing here at Northland Pines, but we're not alone. This group and many others here at the high school have gone to site visits. We've gone to other schools like Waukesha School District, for example. Waukesha South helped us out a few years ago. We've gone to many conferences and seen like Rick Wormelli in conference and standards-based grading and other types of educational leaders and gurus that are out there. We're continuing to try to learn and take things from other school districts, because this is the wave of the future for grading and assessment. This is what we would view as best practice for our kids, and I'm very excited to have all four of you helping to lead the way for standards-based, which, by the way, they are my standards-based grading leaders. They have been working intimately with our staff during the school day, leading mini sessions and breakout sessions on every other Tuesday on various aspects of standards-based grading, and they are piloting right now in a number of classes and departments that are going on, and we're going to continue to do that, and with the goal of being standards-based full-fledged next year. So this has been a journey for us, and it's a journey well worth it, as you can hear. And I couldn't be more excited to be surrounded by these folks and having the opportunity to work alongside them and helping to teach our staff the ins and outs of standards-based grading, because I do believe it is the best practice for our students in providing feedback and getting them to learn the material that we desperately want them to learn. So I thank you for tuning in, and I thank all of you for the work that you're doing for us here at Northland Pines, and go Eagles.